Well, this is a good opportunity to bring Charles back on screen because, of course, Charles, the police should be dealing with the fraud and corruption, are they? It doesn't appear to be so. But you've also got concerns in other directions with the police.
I have, Brian. Thank you very much indeed. And when it concerns fraud and corruption, I think we have to consider where exactly that fraud and corruption may be, whether it's within or without the police forces themselves. What I've got is a video clip, and I'd like you to watch it and form your own opinions about the way in which the police and public relate to one another. This is an isolated incident, of course. If you're only able to listen to it and not watch it, then it occurs in broad daylight in Birmingham city centre at some point in the last few days. And you'll hear the voice of a non-native man who is the person recording the video, and he's speaking mostly to a police sergeant and a little bit to a police constable. You can tell from the music in the background that it's clipped. Obviously, it went on for a reasonable length of time, so we've got segments from it. So please watch, make your own mind up, and we'll come back to the issues teased out by us at the end of the clip.
Jesus Christ. Don't worry. What's that?
Very good thing.
I told you already. I told you already.
You okay?
Yeah.
What's your name?
My name?
Yes.
What? What's your name?
Chris Willits.
Chris Willits. Nice to meet you, my friend.
Nice to meet you. Where are you from?
Where am I from?
Yeah. From Birmingham?
Nah.
Where are you from?
Where am I from? Somewhere around the planet.
Well, so what brings you here today?
Oh, not a lot.
Not a lot.
Nah.
So,
What do you need to know?
you're here in the city centre observing me. Okay, I'm trying to ask you some questions.
Right.
And you're making that very difficult for me, which makes me suspect that you might be trying to conceal something or hide something.
Oh.
Okay, take your hand out your pocket for me, friend.
Take it out your pocket.
Okay, so I'd like to ask
This
you
is
your
not
name.
a conversation now, is it?
So no, it's not now. So at the moment I'm detaining you
For?
because I want to know some more information about you.
You can't just detain me for that.
Yeah, I can.
No, you can't.
Yeah, I can. Section 50 of the Police Reform Act, I'm asking your name.
What did I do?
Pardon? Your presence here is unnerving me and making me very suspicious. Because
What do you mean?
you're watching what we're doing. You stood watching what we were doing over here. You stood watching what we're doing over here.
What's wrong with that?
Pardon? It
What's
makes
wrong?
me suspicious.
So, okay, you're suspicious, but it doesn't give you the right to grab me.
Well, it does because
Can you?
put your hand in your pocket, which makes me concerned.
It's cold. Look how my hands are blue.
Okay. I'm going to disperse you from the city centre because you can't give me a satisfactory
Why
reason
would you
as to why
disperse
you're
me?
here. And I'm concerned that your reason for being here
Yeah.
is going to contribute to crime or antisocial behaviour.
But where do you get that
Section
from?
35,
No, you can't use 35. 35, an inspector needs to issue that.
it's been issued.
Are you an inspector?
No, it's been issued already by Inspector.
You've been dispersed. We're not going to engage in any further conversation. Goodbye.
That's fine.
Anyway, you've been dispersed. At the moment, you're failing to disperse. So it's up to you. You can go or I can arrest you.
You guys are pathetic. Seriously, you are really pathetic. Honestly.
Apologies to those of you that don't much care for reggae. That was a bit overwhelming, but that does encapsulate very well the ways in which legislation can be brought to bear to deal with a certain situation. You no doubt will have made your opinion on how you think that individual was treated, notwithstanding the fact that it may be slightly strange to be filming in public in the manner that he was, but that is not against the law. And we'll just go into the various bits of legislation that were referenced. The first one being Police Reform Act 2002, which is worth noting is the one that brought in the changes to the Oath of Allegiance and introduced the clause upholding fundamental human rights. As we now know, to our cost, those rights may be limited or restricted, or at least some of them may be. So if we can just put on screen the next bit of legislation from that, showing Section 50, which refers to the antisocial behaviour. And this is where he goes wrong immediately, because it states, if a constable in uniform has reason to believe that a person has engaged or is engaging in antisocial behaviour, then he may ask for the name and address. Of course, he used the language of suspicion and suspecting. So it wasn't a belief of his that antisocial behaviour was being engaged in. He introduced that retrospectively. Upon asking the name, he just wanted to know the person's name. And I should state at this point that police do not have a power of stop an account. They may speak to you in the street in the same way that you may speak to anybody else in the street. You can ask them what they're doing. They do not have to answer. Unless police bring a power to bear, they may not be answered if the respondent doesn't want to answer. So we'll just go into antisocial behaviour. If we click on one to the Antisocial Behaviour Crime and Policing Act 2014, and we'll just look at the definition of antisocial behaviour, which says that it is conduct that has caused or is likely to cause harassment, alarm, or distress to any person. The College of Policing on the next slide shows the distinctions between the various types of antisocial behaviour, because it may in effect be personal, or it may be related to where you live, or indeed a wider form in terms of the environmental concerns. And if we go forward again, we'll just look at the dispersal order that he refers to. Now, the man recording is well versed because he knows about the Antisocial Behaviour Act, and he's willing to counter on that, about what we hear him talking about Section 35. Now, it looks like what's happened is an inspector has made an authorisation, a blanket authorisation across Birmingham for this period of time in order that police constables may trap, in effect, those that they talk to with Section 35, which is the dispersal order. So we just put Section 35 back onto the screen, and we'll just have a quick look at that, which states that the authorization is for somebody to leave the locality, not to return to the locality. Sorry, just on one, Brian.
That's right.
That's it. That's right.
Okay.
So this is in effect to stop members of the public being harassed, alarmed, or distressed, or to prevent the occurrence in the locality of crime or disorder. And then we see below Section 39, which states that this may ultimately lead to imprisonment or even a fine. So effectively, what we've got is a situation in which a police sergeant has crafted from almost nowhere a result in which it was possible for somebody to have been imprisoned simply for failing to answer the question in the first instance of who they were and what they were doing. So he's misapplied the legislation, as we've seen. He's misused it. He's confused believe and suspect, which is an enormous distinction to be making. And then we saw towards the end of the clip sort of the rather unpleasant and I would say childish manner in which the man is dismissed as though he's not worth talking to. So it's as though police really do forget themselves in that they are simply civilian members of society who wear a uniform in order to protect the freedoms of those that they police. Now, the gift that keeps on giving we should refer back to, because Just Stop Oil have also found themselves victim of this piece of legislation. In recent times, they were outside Rishi Sunak's private residence, and they're shown here being dispersed by an inspector saying, well, there's a caption below, so we are requesting your details. Again, the same sort of thing. The key word used here is detained, and that cropped up in this video. The police sergeant refers to detaining the man. Now, nowhere in the legislation does it give police a right or a power or the authority to detain, less still to use force, which of course he did, and certainly not to start inspecting the possessions that they had on them. So fundamentally, not only is it a misapplication of the legislation, but it portrays a massive lack in confidence in their ability simply to deal with the public at a human level. And I'm not suggesting in any way that this is applicable rather to all police, but it just goes to show how these sorts of laws, this sort of legislation, may be corrupted to suit the agenda of those that want to belittle the police, the people that they police amongst. with that in mind, we'll just have a quick glance at the future and the Criminal Justice Bill, which we've referred to on UK Column News a number of times now. If we just bring that on screen. And this is the Parliamentary bill going through now, and I've got a bit of text. So we'll just go one click on from there, because there are many items from the Criminal Justice Bill, but the one that I'd like to look at is what's been referred to as nuisance begging. And specifically, not least, there are endless categories in which nuisance begging may occur, but we have the same situation in which the subsection applies if P begs in a way that has caused or is likely to cause harassment, alarm, or distress to a person. So it's this terrifically subjective nature of being offended, which is exactly what that police sergeant articulated. He said, referring only to himself, that he was being unnerved. Now, it's not applicable to this bit of legislation, but I should refer back to the Public Order Act 1986, the first three sections of which relate to somebody, and particularly a police constable, being a person of reasonable firmness. I've spoken about this before, and essentially it means that a police constable who should be well used to dealing with such situations would be robust enough not to be offended by whatever it is that's going to be happening. Of course, this isn't actually written into this bit of legislation, but it's just something to bear in mind. If somebody's going to put on the uniform and go out and deal with potentially life-threatening incidents, should they really be behaving like this to a man standing on a street corner filming them?
Okay, Charles, thank you very much for that. Well, of course, they shouldn't, but if your objective is to close down freedoms amongst the public and free speech and activities on the street, then it works extremely well.